We have some really exciting updates on the Backrooms, It Welcome to Derry, and even Terrifier with a brand new episode of Weekly Woes. We're moving these from Thursdays to Mondays, by the way, just a little heads up. Now let's get into all the crazy things that happened this past weekend in horror. We have 7 exciting news stories to get into today, so let's start off with The Seven Writers' new satanic slasher movie called Psycho Killer, set for a release date just a week before Scream 7 in February of next year. All right, this is exciting for so many reasons. Guys, if you've seen 7, you know that this is one of the best horror kind of movies, but more like neo-noir crime thrillers probably ever. I think it has one of the most iconic twist endings in a movie, like top 10 of all time, without a doubt. What's in the box? If you know, you know. Go watch the movie. Wow. But let's talk a little bit about this. This is a brand new slasher film from 20th Century Studios. It releases on February 20th of 2026, again a week before Scream 7, which is crazy. Hopefully this one doesn't totally get drowned out by that film, which will certainly have a good box office reception and run, because it's the Scream film that's going to bring literally everybody back, so of course people are going to want to see it. Gavin Polone, this is his first time directing a movie. It'll be his directorial debut, but he was a producer on Zombieland and Panic Room. I really like Zombieland. I don't think I've actually seen Panic Room, but I'll tell you what, Zombieland, banging movie. It's a comedy. This sounds a little more serious, but speaking of which, it's coming from a script written by Andrew Kevin Walker, who of course was the writer of 7, which 7 and Sleepy Hollow, by the way. Damn, dude, you got some good writing credits. Oh my God, both of those are banging 90s movies if you have not seen either of those. Sleepy Hollow, I think, may be the most underrated Tim Burton film, if you guys have not seen that. Sleepy Hollow does not get enough love these days, and I think that's a shame. In the film, however, police officer Jane Thorne, played likely by Georgina Campbell from Barbarian, makes it her mission to take down a serial killer referred to on the news as the Satanic Slasher, following the murder of her state trooper husband. Wow. Okay, first of all, great idea for a movie. I'm digging this so much. Sounds kind of Long Legs. It kind of sounds a little, you know, maybe Silence of the Lambs inspired. Honestly, the state trooper husband thing kind of gives me more Fargo vibes, if you guys have seen that movie. That, again, not necessarily a horror movie, but definitely adjacent in some way, shape, or form. But the cast is great too. We have Georgina Campbell, Logan Miller, and James Preston Rogers, all excellent actors. I'm really excited to see all 3 of them in this movie. And it's cool to see Georgina Campbell in more stuff. I loved her in Barbarian, and I guess she's in that like Bird Box sequel movie. I never saw it. I'd watch it just for her alone, though, just because of how great she is in Barbarian. And here's a pretty sick shot of her in that film. But I'd watch that dumb sequel just for her. It's probably bad, but I'll check it out at some point. This movie, though, I think is going to be great, and I have a lot of faith in it just from that premise alone. We'll be seeing it here in less than a year. Let me know if you guys are excited about it in the comments below. We have a ton of bizarre updates regarding It Welcome to Derry. Not necessarily bizarre, but just odd and funny. And I love odd and funny updates. Maybe my favorite ones to report on. So first of all, we got a brand new poster, which is cool. Nice. I wouldn't be doing a whole segment though if it was just a poster, because this is pretty to look at, but not really a whole lot to talk about. So let's go back up here. We have something really exciting happening at their at San Diego Comic-Con, where they're going to be talking about this new series that comes out, It Welcome to Derry, which the first 9 episodes will be, as this article says, floating down to HBO Max in October. Which, yes, it's HBO Max again officially. If you guys did not know that, not just Max. That was dumb. Let's go back to HBO Max. Come on now. But October, all 9 episodes are dropping. Really excited for that. And if you're in the San Diego area attending this Comic-Con event, you'll be able to see footage from the first episode on July 26th at 9:15 p.m. sharp at the Convention Room 6DE. Andy and Barbara are going to be there. They're going to be handing out free ice cream. It's going to be a ton of fun. On top of that, Pennywise-inspired pedicabs will be offering free rides while brand ambassadors hand out chilling sweets throughout the San Diego Convention Center. Hang on, is this more free ice cream? Y'all are going to be like ice creamed out. A lot of brain freezes happening at this convention center in July, let me tell you. But honestly, this is so exciting and so much fun. I cannot wait for this series. I personally really enjoy the remake It movies, if that's what we want to call them. Because it's weird. They're kind of remakes. They're also kind of not. The first adaptation of It came in 1990 with that miniseries, which is sick and probably most memorable because of Tim Curry's performance as Pennywise. The legend, the man, the myth, the legend, who, by the way, sorry, not to go too far off the rails here, but Tim Curry just kind of came back to the screen recently for Stream, and now they're making Stream 2. Will he come back for that? I hope so. That's exciting. But staying on track here, it welcomed the Derry. Really excited for this. And if it does well, there's been a promise from Andy Muschietti that they'll do 2 more seasons that will respectively take place 27 years before the last season. So it'll be like each season moving forward is a prequel to what came beforehand. That is so exciting to me, and I cannot wait to see what that's all about. It's mentioned here that this new series is just based on the Mike Hanlon interludes from the 1986 novel from Mr. King, just kind of talking about the catastrophic events that preceded the events of the actual novel itself. So I'm excited to see like what these other seasons will end up being. They'll be a little more just from the Muschiettis, you know what I mean? More so from the creative force here rather than being based on a book. It's like totally off script at that point. How far and how crazy is this going to get? We do know a little bit from the book, like ultimately what Pennywise's origins are, and I'm sure that's what we'll be getting into more or less as we do more of these prequel series, if we get them, of course, in different seasons. I hope so. But it's definitely something I'm interested to see moving forward with this series, and I just hope that season 1 is good. I hope that it hits and that people are interested, and hopefully we'll get 3 of these seasons, man. It'll be great. Cannot wait to see this in October. Definitely looking forward to it. Let me know what you guys are how you guys are feeling about it in the comments. We have a few updates regarding A24 today. This one, probably the smaller story, but still very interesting. They're teasing that a sinister hidden treat will be on the Bring Her Back Blu-ray menu screen. Now, a few things I want to talk about regarding Bring Her Back. I guess it didn't do that well at the box office. It only, scrounged up $22 million. It was the Filippo brothers' follow-up to Talk to Me, which was a huge box office hit and even has a sequel coming out very soon. But this movie just didn't really manage to hit those same strides, which I think is only because the concept doesn't lend itself to like more of a younger crowd. This feels like a much more mature film. And honestly, my big attraction to Talk to Me in the first place was that it was a young adult horror movie that was done very well and still extremely scary. I feel like a lot of the ones that I see and cover on this page don't really have like a terror element. It's like horror adjacent comedy, essentially. Like a lot of them are like slashers with a really bad twist at the end, essentially. Majority of the ones I cover, I feel like Hard Eyes falls into that category really well. Like it's funny and it's a good one-time watch, but it's nothing I'm coming back to and seeing a lot of substance and something more sophisticated there. Something like Talk to Me definitely is aimed towards younger people, but it's still so sophisticated, has a lot to talk about in terms of grief and an ending that'll just leave you totally paralyzed in fear with how well it's done. So Bring Her Back probably wasn't marketed to that same group of people, which is why I don't think it came up with the same box office success as their first movie. That doesn't mean it's bad, though. This is not me criticizing it. Bring Her Back, I think, is one of the best horror films of the year, and it's actually kind of a shame that it didn't do as well, especially with all these teases that it's in the same universe as Talk to Me, which brings us to today's update. We're hearing that on the special features menu, which let's look at this picture real quick. There's some sort of mysterious icon that comes up. Now, if you remember from the film itself, that seems to be the icon of the cult that Sally Hawkins' character was kind of somehow involved with in trying to bring back her deceased daughter. And if you've seen the secret website that was used to promote this film, this same icon is seen all over the place on that website. And again, that website tells us that this is in the same universe as Talk to Me in one way, shape, or another. And I think that's interesting because this movie hits on similar themes as Talk to Me. There's even kind of a cheeky little line that's a reference to Talk to Me, if you remember from the film. One of the characters even says it, like, dude, talk to me. And it's like, I see what you did there. I see what you did there, Danny and Michael. So my thoughts are this is going to be some sort of maybe bigger connection to that film, saying like, hey, make sure you buy the 4K release of this. And then you'll maybe get some other hints as to what's going on in this universe. We know that Talk to Me, the sequel to Talk to Me, is coming out soon from the Filippo brothers. My guess is they're going to try to do everything in their power to say that this is connected to it for a couple of reasons. I feel like the themes in this movie build on top of what was already established in Talk to Me, but also to get some sales for their physical release of this movie, right? They got to make their money somehow with this. So my guess is they're going to really try to drive that connection. If it's in an established universe that more people are really into, I feel like more people are going to want to check this this one out that may have missed it in the theaters. It's got a sick looking release too. I mean, look at that poster. Look at, oh, man, A24 releases, man. They never disappoint with these physical I don't know. I think they're sick as fuck. But anyways, I am very excited for this one. I'll be picking it up personally. I can't wait to see this one again. I've only got to see it once in the theaters. Really thankful that A24 got to send me to this one early, and I enjoyed it quite a bit, man. I thought it was a really good movie. Maybe not my absolute favorite of the year, but it's definitely up there, definitely in my top 10. Great slow burn that will just make you feel horrible by by the time it's over. It's just like, oh my God, my soul has been ripped out of my body if you haven't seen this one. And like I said, tons of teases to some sort of connection between this movie and Talk to Me, with the whole cult angle that could explain where the hand from that film came from. So maybe we'll learn more about that in the Talk to Me sequel coming out sometime soon. I would call this the dark horse story of today's video. This is one that's kind of flown under the radar, and I don't know why. This is a really exciting concept that Maggie Levin and Scott Derrickson are going to be exploring. So let's talk a little bit about this. Maggie Levin, Scott Derrickson, probably one of my favorite couples making movies right now. I think that a lot of the things that they touch are, at the very least, excellent concepts that are executed pretty well. I will say, I don't know if I was crazy about their latest movie, The Gorge, but even then, like, it's not a forgettable movie by any means. It had a very good concept, a really cool idea. I just don't know if I loved the way that the story ultimately played out. Kind of lended itself to something darker, and it was much more of like an action film rather than like a supernatural situation. If you want to learn more about that, look it up, watch it on Apple TV. It's worth a watch at the very least, but I feel The Gorge could have been done better. But that's going to be a whole other tangent. Let's talk about their upcoming film, Ghost Eaters, that they're going to be working on, that will come out sometime after The Black Phone 2 this October. So Maggie Levin, this is a creative that I feel so many times just gets roped into Scott Derrickson these days, which is a shame, because I've heard so many people say, oh, Scott Derrickson's wife, Scott Derrickson's this, whatever. Maggie Levin is excellent on her own. I have not even seen My Valentine, but dude, her short in VHS 99 has grown on me so much, called Shredders. It's the one that opens up that fifth entry in that series, and I think she did a great job with it personally. It's kind of flipping roles for what they typically do, which I think is cool. Scott Derrickson's usually are like writer-director, and Maggie Levin is producing or just working some other department, and now we're flipping that on its head. Maggie Levin is going to write and direct this movie with Scott Derrickson on board to produce, and it's the adaptation of Clay McLeod Chaplin. I just had to look that up because I'm like, how do you pronounce that middle word there? McLeod? No, McLeod. Now, I'm so excited for this because of them, of course, but if you have no idea who Maggie Levin or Scott Derrickson are, let's just talk about the concept here. Ghost Eaters is about how Erin hasn't been able to set a single boundary with her charismatic but reckless college ex-boyfriend, Silas. When he asks her to bail him out of rehab again, she knows she needs to cut him off. But days after he gets out, Silas turns up dead of an overdose in their hometown of Richmond, Virginia, and Erin's world falls apart. When a friend tells her about Ghost, a new drug that allows users to see the dead, "Want to get haunted?" he asks, grieving and desperate for closure with Silas. Erin agrees to a pill-popping seance, but the drug has unfathomable side effects, and once you take it, you can never go back. I don't even care who's writing and directing this. I'm seeing that movie for that concept. That's insane. Sounds like it's going to be a paranormal story that also gets into some drug culture commentary, and I'm all about this, dude. That's insane. Does it sound like another grief story? Yes, but there's so many other cool and interesting things happening there that I hope this movie will focus on, that I think it'll still be a very good time, a very good watch. I can't wait to see whatever this ends up being. I guess the novel's description teases one of Vulture's best horror novels of 2022. This terrifying supernatural page-turner will make you think twice about opening doors to the unknown. Okay, very cool. We were just talking about Talk to Me, and this sounds like very similar to that. They used possession as a drug, essentially, in that movie. And this sounds like it's getting a little more literal with that. This could be cool. I'm excited to see what it's all about. Ghosts and drugs coming together in one big movie. That could be something crazy. And again, coming from who I would consider masters of horror at this point, I really think this is going to be something special. Definitely something to look out for. Maybe a little bit of a sleeper hit coming up in the following years, or maybe coming out late next year. We'll see what it's all about. I can't wait for this and also Black Phone 2 coming from essentially the same team later on this year. Lots of good stuff to look forward to from the Levins, the Derricksons in the future. As a huge Resident Evil fan, I couldn't be more excited for Zach Cregger's new adaptation of the flick that comes out in September of next year. And let me tell you, this guy is busy. Oh my God. Zach Cregger has a new movie coming out in August, like less than a month, called Weapons, that a lot of people are really excited for. Has a lot of cryptic marketing behind it, and we're not exactly sure what it is, what's going on with it. But now Zach is talking a little bit about how his Resident Evil isn't going to be 100% faithful to the games. And I know that you hear that and you're thinking, oh my God, this is Paul W.S. Anderson all over again. Please no, I can't take that. I can't take any more of those movies. They're a guilty pleasure for me, but I do understand the criticisms, and I don't think they're actually good movies. I think I like them because they're just cheesy, so bad they're good kind of vibes with some of my favorite characters from the video games. But let's talk about everything that Cregger had to say here, because I think if you just take that one quote and pull it out of context, you're going to be like, this movie's gonna suck. But hang on, just bear with me on this one. Cregger says, I am a gigantic Resident Evil game fan. I played them all. I don't know how many times I've just looped Resident Evil 4 again and again. I just love it. See, okay, pause real quick. That tells me he really is a Resident Evil fan, because RE4 is definitely one of the best ones. Let's be real here. All right, let's get back to this. I'm definitely not trying to be obedient to the lore of the games. I'm trying to tell a story that just feels authentic to the experience you get when you play the games. See, that to me, that the rest of that quote, that tells me everything I need to know. He's trying to do something that feels like the experience of the games, and that I feel is more important than just doing a one-for-one adaptation of a game's story. Isn't that kind of what we did with the last film, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, and that was still kind of a miss? I liked aspects to it. I thought there was a lot of things about it that I did end up enjoying much more than the Paul W.S. Anderson flick, but ultimately it feels overstuffed, and not like a good movie adaptation of that story from Resident Evil 2, because they also tried to jam-pack the entire story of 1 right in the middle during like one sequence, which admittedly, sick sequence. If you saw the movie, when Chris Redfield is getting chased by all the zombies in the Spencer mansion. I mean, that's cool as fuck. Don't get me wrong. But there's times where I'm watching this movie and it just feels overstuffed. They're trying to do way too much from the video games, and maybe they should have just cut some of the fat, realistically. I love the second video game, I think a lot of people know, is also one of the better ones, Resident Evil 2. But you can't be too faithful. There's a point where you have to cut some things to make a 90-minute movie. That's a game that takes you hours and hours and hours to play. There's no way you can tell that story in the span of 90 minutes, right? So things have to be cut, things have to be changed. You have to do that the right way, and you got to make changes that are going to please people watching, but that's a tough thing to do, as Cregger gets into here. I don't think I'm breaking any major rules, but I also recognize that no matter what I do, people are going to come for me online. So all I want to do is just make a really good movie and tell a story that's compelling. I know that I'm going to be happy with the movie, and hopefully other people will be too. And I think that's the best way to approach something like this. There's no reality where you make everybody happy with an adaptation of anything. It's never going to happen. But can you make something that you're happy with, that will be something that fans can get something out of that maybe they didn't from the video games? I think yes. I think you absolutely can, while still being faithful to what people love about those games, also adding in your own 2 cents. He also says, I will also say I've never seen a movie like it. It doesn't jump around like Weapons and Barbarian, but it is still unto itself. And that, I just feel, is Zach Cregger saying this is going to be more so focused on trying to tell an authentic Resident Evil story in the version of film, where Weapons and Barbarian are more so closer films to him. And I think that's a really good statement to wrap all this up with, as he's talking with SFX Magazine here. That makes a lot of sense to me. You know what I mean? This has got to be like, you got to throw your own injection of yourself into, whatever you're making, of course. But when you're adapting something to the big screen, something that already has an initial fan base like Resident Evil, yeah, you got to do the tropes of that franchise, put them to the big screen, and then add in a little bit of yourself there. But the initial attraction is the fact that this is a Resident Evil movie. Zach Cregger clearly is not forgetting that. So this comes out on September 18th of next year. I'm really excited for it, man. I think it's probably going to be the best Resident Evil film. That's what I'm predicting as of right now. Zach has he made a huge splash with Barbarian, and it's the reason I'm so excited for Weapons. Probably the movie I'm most anticipating for the rest of the year, outside of like Black Phone 2 and Together. These 3 movies I'm just like the most excited for, without a doubt. So We'll see what this one is all about on September 18th of next year. Hopefully Weapons is good too, coming out in August, very early August. I think it's like the first week. So hopefully these are all good, man. The sophomore slump is a very real thing with a lot of creatives out there, and it would be such a bummer to see that happen to such a big up-and-comer with some big swings in his first film. So hopefully Weapons and his Resident Evil adaptation absolutely bang. Holy crap, we finally have updates on A24's The Backrooms movie. So we have a ton of people being added to the cast, which let's just get this out of the way. Mark Duplass from the Creep franchise. That's so exciting. I love Mark. He's amazing in so many different things. Such a versatile actor that rarely gets his flowers. I think Mark is not only a phenomenal horror villain, as a lot of us know him as, but he's also just a great dramatic actor. He can play the good guy, he can play the bad guy, he can play the dude that's somewhere in between. I've seen him do it in so many different properties. If it's something that him and his brother made or just whatever, I know he's going to be great here. So I have total faith in this actor. So versatile, knows how to do so many different unique performances that we've definitely seen out of him so far. So I think he's going to just rock it out here. Finn Bennett, Lukita Maxwell, and Avon Yogia have all joined the cast, which interestingly enough, that last name played Leon in Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, which we were just talking about that in the last update, which is nuts. But I'm excited for this a ton. This is one of the first big updates we've had on the film in a long time. I'm guessing that, we have Kane Parsons, maybe Kane Pixels, as you may know him on YouTube, the creator of the Backrooms, being a very, very, very young kid when he got it first announced to be making this movie a few years ago. He's now 20 years old, and this is his feature directorial debut, I should say, as he's built this entire universe out on his YouTube channel, which you should totally check out some of those videos. Some really cool stuff over there. But now he's directing this new movie. And he's a young kid. I think we got to give him a break here. I honestly think when they first announced A24 was going to make this movie with like a teenager, he was 17 at the time. A lot of people were like, what? Like, that's insane. This is a kid essentially we're talking about here. That to me is where I feel some of the why we had to wait so long for a big update and why the movie is only now shooting this week. And it's nothing like, listen, this is not me criticizing Kane. He's a young guy. Dude, 17 years old and you're working with a company that people would like die to work for. Yeah, that's a tough thing to make happen, dude. So I'm imagining he's slowly figuring all of this out, taking his time. He has a lot to learn. Let's be honest. We've seen some very impressive things from him over on his YouTube channel, but now he's tackling something that is an entirely different beast, a feature film. And that's something that's just going to take a little longer for someone who's, admittedly a little more inexperienced. He has made some really impressive shit though. Don't get me wrong. This is again, not me criticizing him at all, but he's a younger guy. Let's just be real about the situation here. This is going to be a tougher project for someone in his age range. And I think some people are going to be like, you're being ageist, Jake, but dude, wisdom does come with age. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm much smarter than I was when I was 17 years old, thank God. And I think that it's just something that's gonna be a slow burn where we're gonna make this thing is gonna happen. I think it's gonna be great, but it's just gonna take a little longer than like other people who have been doing this for a lot longer. Let's just be real. But I'll get off that topic. I really do think that this movie's going to be sick. Clearly, James Wan has a lot of faith in this, who's producing it through his Atomic Monster outlet. And I think it's going to be sick. Really excited to learn more about this one as production goes underway. Hopefully we see some sort of production photos. I would love to see Mark Duplass running around the back rooms getting chased by one of those entities. Let's see what that's all about, man. Really excited for this one. Again, let me know in the comments what your guys' thoughts are on the Backrooms movie, likely coming out next year from A24. What is likely our biggest story is that Terrifier has a new haunted house coming out for Halloween Horror Nights this year in the fall, and I am so excited. So for those who don't know, Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios has to be the very big, the biggest haunted house attraction on the planet. I mean, nobody does it better. I've been to a few in my lifetime, but the one time in 2022 that I got to go see Halloween Horror Nights, it was easily some of the very best haunted houses I've ever walked through. The Halloween house that year, still one of probably my all-time favorite haunted house I've ever been to, without a doubt. The attention to detail is amazing. amazing. The food is delicious. The little scare zones are so intricate, and they don't have to be, but because they are, it's why I hold it to that standard. Like, that's like the #1 haunted house event on the planet for that reason. And now Terrifier is getting the same level of high quality treatment. Let's talk a little bit about what's to be expected, though. The Terrifier immersive experience will allow guests to experience an unfathomable level of gore, which we'll talk more about that later. Definitely a big talking point I want to get to, as they try to escape becoming Art the Clown's next victims, promising a grisly haunted house oozing with a new sense of terror. Ticket holders for the seasonal event will find themselves in the demented clown's gruesome funhouse, which first appeared in the second film. So we're going to go through the Terrifier house that appeared at the end of the second movie, which is sick. I feel like that was made for a haunted house attraction. There's so many different scenes at the end of Terrifier 2 where you see Sienna or Jonathan getting attacked by, not really getting attacked, but getting scared by some sort of crazy animatronic, and you're wondering like, wow, Art the Clown just lives with that, huh? But we'll see a ton of iconic kills from the franchise's history. We'll encounter a few familiar faces like Art the Clown, Vicky, the little pale girl, and we're even going to run through the Clown Cafe, and maybe even some sort of Christmas themed sequence from something from the third movie, which will be really exciting. There's so much excitement with this. Obviously, a lot of us are hyped to see what this is all about. But I think another big thing that I want to get into with this is that it's promising high levels of gore. I got to witness Toxic Icon podcast this past weekend at GullGotha talk a little bit about their own experiences with so many different Halloween Horror Nights throughout the years. And the big thing that they mentioned is that in the past, they've promised a lot of gory haunted houses and haven't necessarily delivered on that. It's like what was like their one big criticism of this whole event. With it being Terrifier, it has to deliver in pushing things right to the line and also delivering a lot of blood, guts, and gore. It's also been promised that, you know, I want to say concert goers, people who go through this haunted house will be able to get covered in blood, which again, very exciting. That's, if I were to go to this, which I don't think I'll be able to, that is absolutely something I want from this. I want Art the Clown to spray me with blood. I want him to honk his horn in my face. But will they actually deliver, you know, blood and guts, you know, being sprayed all over the place, gore in this haunted house? Kids are going through this, you know, will they tame it down for this attraction? And would that satisfy Terrifier fans who love this franchise because it pushes things right to the line? That's the big question I think being asked right now about this house. I think it has to deliver there to be a satisfying Terrifier experience, very similar to the new Terrifier game that's also coming out this October. Yes, it's an arcade game and it's, you know, more fun and a little more silly, cartoonish, but that works with Terrifier. Still delivers blood, guts, and gore and killing people in really unique ways as you play as characters like Art the Clown or Vicky or the little pale girl. So I think that this house also has to deliver in that field. I mean, again, I know kids are going to this and that might be a controversial thing to say, but if you want to make a Terrifier experience that delivers, you got to have some really visceral images being seen, being played out by scare actors throughout the entire house. So I'm really hoping that this delivers. I share that concern because I understand being, you know, Universal and not wanting people to complain. They have complained before. If you know anything about Halloween Horror Nights history, there's been crazy lawsuits about things with their Chucky attractions. I remember reading about that a long time ago, which is crazy. But I really hope they deliver here, man. Nothing would make me happier. We know that Damien Leone is heavily involved and has wanted some sort of Terrifier attraction for a while. I myself won't be able to go. I'm just way too busy moving into an apartment with my fiance right now to be able to afford something as crazy as this. But if you can go to either the Hollywood or Orlando attractions, please take me with you. So fellas, let me know down in the comments below how you guys are feeling about all of these updates. Which one was your favorite? Which one just kind of has you a little more concerned? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys all again for watching. Please subscribe. And as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.